Nigerians are also facing it. Of course, I have to take a commercial vehicle this afternoon before I could get to this vehicle, because to this studio, because if I have not done that, there's every likelihood that I may not be able to go back home with the vehicle, and that's why I just have to park it somewhere. And the implication is that there's no guarantee that I'll be able to go out with the vehicle tomorrow. I just have to be at home while I begin to go to work with public vehicle. And that's the situation I found myself, which I believe is not too different, for several agonies that Nigerians are also going through at this material point in time. And it's quite unfortunate, despite the stupendous nature of the crude oil that we are endowed with as a nation.
Talking about the issue of transport that you said it took the commercial vehicle, some people said the price has doubled in the last few weeks due to this fuel scarcity.
Yes, and you also have to be blamed for that, because if you go to any filling station now, the list you will see is maybe 197, 195 naira per liter. That's the prevailing price everywhere you go. And of course, under that kind of situation, you don't expect anything less, from what the commercial drivers and commercial operators are doing. They just have to, to make up for extra costs they've incurred in terms of buying the petrol. And I must say, from my personal conversation with some of them, it's not that they are also happy with the situation, because sometimes you could be tempted to think that, this situation created an avenue for them to be making extra income, but that's not so. We find out that if you look at the magnitude of the increase in the price of petrol, there's the current price they are even collecting, they are charging for the toll as toll fare now, does not even commensurate, because they couldn't have done anything better than that, because otherwise perhaps they will not also have patronage, because even at now many people prefer trekking than patronizing this public vehicle. You see, you have to trek some meters in order to ensure that at least the cost of the transport has reduced. So that has been the practice everywhere. And under that kind of situation, you find out that if the commercial vehicle operators has increased the price more than the current, exorbitant, price they collect from the passenger, there's every likelihood that they may not be able to have people patronizing them. And what that means is that, like I said, they are not happy with the situation, because the reason why some of them are just working is just not to be sleeping at home, just to have something keep them moving.
You will continue with your line of thoughts. There are viewers who can be part of this conversation by simply dialing the number on your television set to ask questions or to tell us and share your experiences in your various states about this issue of fuel scarcity. The NNPC last month, when the scarcity started, cited importation of adulterated petrol from Belgium as the cause of this hike that we are having, and they blamed the scarcity on efforts to quarantine on evacuated volumes of the toxic petrol. But here we are up to now still having these issues.
I think it should be on this station where we had conversation around that argument. And I said it point blank then that the argument is just a mere excuse. It's just a smooth screen, that to justify the hike. Because when you look at the argument, then they said that a adulterated fuel to the tune of 200 million liters were imported into the country, and about 3 marketers were accused: MRS, Oando, and Dick Oil, or something like that. I think those are including there's another fourth one which I've forgotten the name. Those were the ones that were accused. And those ones said that no, that they are not culpable, because the fuel they imported, that it was tested by the NSC before brought into the country. And there was no element of such kind of accusation at that point. That how come suddenly the story changed that they're the one who brought in adulterated fuel. But even from our own understanding, before now, the impression NNPC used to give Nigeria was that they are now the sole importer of fuel. Because sometimes around 2016, the NNPC took charge, under the pretense that they cannot continue to give forex, to importers. That some of these importers collect forex and they use it for different purposes. And on that basis, the NNPC claimed that he is the only importer of fuel. How sudden do we now have a situation whereby NNPC is accusing, some marketer of importing adulterated fuel? But even if that's the case, by now one would have expected those importers will have been arrested, will have been prosecuted according to law, but up to now, nothing of such has been done. But even at that, from their own record, the impression we're given is that as a nation, we consume 53 million liters of petrol on daily basis. And what that means is that if you divide, the 200 million liters, that means that in 4 days, that is what we are meant to consume for 4 days. So if that is the situation, our suffering shouldn't exceed a maximum of 1 week just to evacuate, because what they brought in, 200 million liters,
should have been mopped.
Will have been mopped in 4 days. And what I mean is that we only suffer for 4 days while you bring in fresh one, after a week. But here we are, the situation, continue. And that's why some of us in our own...
Before you tell me, I have a call here. Let me pick this call. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Good evening. How are you?
Very fine. Your name and where you are calling from?
I'm John Adam Maxwell from Benue State.
Oh, from Benue. Good evening. Your contribution, please.
Yeah. This situation of this person is very, very bad.
Okay.
2 Korea, we always buy 230 naira. And some filling station, when you went, you bought it 250.
Okay.
The kind of government we are in now, there is no money, there is no job. We are facing a lot of challenges, which is very, very bad. Like people that can transport from one place to another place and check their family, they cannot be doing. So each food now is done by the grace of God. So please, God should look to come to our end and help us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan from Benue, for that contribution. We appreciate. He's talking about the hike and what the pains that people have to go through, and he's calling on the government to come to their aid.
Well, I don't think this government has the capacity.
Why would you say that?
Because when you look at all of the arguments, at first, none of the persons accused have been arrested. And two, when you look at the volume of what they claim was imported as adulterated fuel, if truly that's the case, it shouldn't take this long, before that has happened.
But if you look at the argument of the marketers, they are saying that the hike in petrol price is due to lack of supply by the NNPC depot nationwide.
That's a different story now. We are talking of the first argument, the first instance, what we were told are responsible for this scarcity. And I'm not sure. Okay, the government just a few days ago, they came with another argument of the Ukraine-Russia conflict.
Yes.
That according to them has made some imported fuel now to be hanging on the sea that could not be brought into the country. That is the second story, which they are still just telling us. But like I said, if you look at the first argument, it's riddled with, a lot of suspicion. First, none of the persons accused of importing this adulterated fuel has been arrested, and even with the volume, it shouldn't take this long before it is clear. It's on that basis that some of us doubts that argument. And what is our conclusion? That even if true, that if it is true that there was importation of adulterated fuel, it means that it is the federal government that actually connive with the marketer to ensure
why would you say that? Although we have there is a school of thought that believes that when the IMF recommended that they should remove fuel subsidy, but the people said no, it is not time to remove, and the federal government shifted for some months before the removal, that it might be a subtle way to remove subsidy. Is that what you are trying to say?
It is part of it. It's part of it because to us in Socialist Party of Nigeria, we see this artificial scarcity as a ploy, to force scarcity on Nigeria, so that people will be buying at exorbitant rate, as we are seeing it now, which will automatically force people to accept hike in pump price. Because, like you rightly pointed out, the argument of around removal of what they call subsidy, which some of us believe that there's no subsidy, ultimately started from the directive of IMF. And that was when the governors, the president, the presidency, National Assembly begin to make a move, to hike the pump price then. And the pressure of Nigerian people forced the labor movement, especially the NLC-TUC, to oppose that move then with a threat of a nationwide strike. And that forced the government to make a retreat, to say, okay, we are going to suspend it for 18 months. That's hike is not going to be done until 18 months. And they claim that they've requested...
Okay, let's take this call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Very fine. Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm Benjamin from Boston.
From Borno State. Good evening. Your question, contribution, how is the fuel scarcity affecting people in your area?
Definitely we are a serious problem because, Borno State now is the next 2 years now we don't have electricity. So we depend on the fuel and do our activities. Now what is happening there is affecting us seriously because we are facing a lot of challenges, and according to the government is, you know that the masses are suffering. Because I believe that there is no sense to any of these government people that keep their cars or stop these cars of fuel. So all these things that are happening on the masses and the poor people. So let them come back to their senses and realize that we are the people that need them to be in that position. So that's my point for the government.
Thank you so much from Borno State. We appreciate you. Yes, he's saying that where he resides in Borno State for a long time now, they do not have electricity. They depend on fuel for their businesses, for their house, and all other things apart from vehicles. And here we have there is fuel scarcity.
Yes, it's not impossible because according to the recent reports, over 57 Nigerians depend on generator as a means of generating.
You will answer it together. Another call is coming in. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Good evening. Please move away from your television set. Your name and where you are calling from.
Hello.
Hello, I can hear you now. Your name and where you are calling from.
I'm Mr. Kelvin. I'm calling from Delta State.
From Delta. Interesting. How is it in Delta? Hope the fuel scarcity is not biting too hard.
Yeah.
Oh, we lost that call. You can call back, please.
So, like I was saying, the reports from the person who said that he has not been having access to electricity for over 2-3 years now. To me, it's not something surprising. If you follow the recent reports that over 57% of Nigerians depend on generator as a means of generating electricity.
All right. Hello. Good evening.
Hello. Good evening. Welcome.
Okay, your name and where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Kano.
From Kano. Interesting. Please move away from your television set so we can hear you. How is fuel scarcity biting in Kano?
Okay. It's okay.
All right, I can hear you guys.
It's exactly in Kano here. Tomorrow has become a very big problem. The vehicles and the phone stations hundreds of them there. And most people are resorting to killing to their own nation. But the question I want to ask is, we have petroleum now, crude oil in Nigeria. Why are we saying that we don't have food because of what is happening in Ukraine and Russia? Why should Nigeria accept this type of thing? It's not unfortunate.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We appreciate it. You're saying that we have fuel in Nigeria. Why should we be having issues with what is happening in Ukraine and Russia?
Well, it's a reflection of the failure of the government to guarantee local ability of the country to refine its crude oil locally. Because according to information from the NLPC, normally they refined what we consume as petrol here from refinery outside the country, and one of it is located in Belgium. I think there are about 6 refineries that they often patronize to refine our crude oil. So, and they will bring this, are going to return this refined, products through the sea. And that's the argument they are now using now. But you must not be deceived. They are just excuses upon excuses. Just like they started with the excuses of adulterated fuel. It is when they found out that that seemed not to suffice. That's why they started the argument around Ukraine.
But it is not. Is it not obvious what is happening in Ukraine? Why would you call it an excuse?
It is an excuse because even in Ukraine, a country ravaged with war currently, they have not been complaining of.
Okay, somebody wants to contribute. Hello, good evening. Oh, we lost that call.
If it's a country that is currently being ravaged with war, has not complained of fuel scarcity. So what concerns us here in Nigeria? But even if that happens, who is to be blamed for that? It's our government who has failed to make our 4 refinery. We have 4 refineries in Nigeria.
But is it about this administration? You will recall that before now, when this administration came on board, it was one of the things promised. Before you answer that question, let's try this. Hello, good evening. Oh, okay. Yes,
so
right.
Like I was saying, it is the failure of the government. Because if our 4 refineries are working, there won't be any basis, for taking crude oil outside for refining, let alone importing, refined product. But it's because we don't have any functional refinery that has forced us to that level. And the Nigerian government and Nigerian state deliberately, ruined our 4 refinery just to create an avenue for their friends who are the importers of this finished product to be making super profits. Is that
allegation not too huge? Is it possible for the government to deliberately cripple something that will bring in money for the citizens and they can also export?
The same way they want to cripple federal investors now. The same way they cripple NITEL. The same way they cripple railway. The same way they cripple what's it called? This insurance company. So this government is known, and not this government alone. Including the preceding one, with the tradition of killing public utility in order to create room.
We are always quick to blame and point accusing fingers at leaders, but does followers not have a role to play in all of this?
Well, before you start blaming the followers, because there are some persons who are shadowed with the responsibility of presiding over all of these public utilities. So if there's anything that goes wrong with them, it shouldn't be the follower first. It should, be those who are in charge. And that is why we cannot blame anybody, but those who have been presiding over the Nigerian government and the Nigerian economy, including the states. And that is why all these things that is happening is quite unfortunate, because when you look at the magnitude of hardship that is currently imposing on Nigerians, to me, it's something that, it shouldn't be a portion.
If you look at what the governors said yesterday, the governors forum, they are saying that fuel subsidy is not something that is sustainable, that the federal government should remove the subsidy, because whichever way you look at it, who is gaining from the NNPC?
You ask them that which subsidy are they actually talking about? Because nothing like subsidies. There's nothing like subsidy. I don't want to even join arguments or join issue with Buhari. who before he became the president, himself acknowledged the fact that there's no subsidy. But the truth of the matter is like, there was a man, a professor of petroleum engineering, Professor Seliangbon. He did an analysis on the cost of petrol in Nigeria since 2012. And on the basis of that analysis, and he made it quite clear that based on the current reality, because what the Nigerian government does is that on every, because we were told that we consume 53 million liters of petrol on daily basis. But the impression they were giving us is that 53 liters is often imported from abroad. And it is not, and that they buy crude oil from abroad, they refined it in order for us to be able to get that 53 liters. That was not the truth. What happens really is swapping. The Nigerian government on a daily basis always set aside 450,000 barrels of crude oil. And they will export it outside the country. They distribute it to about 6 refineries. And they will refine this product, the crude oil there. And the only cost Nigeria incur is the cost of transporting the crude oil down to the refinery. The cost of refining, Nigeria don't pay for it, which is the major thing, the major cost always incur in the process. And what that means is that that's is a fractional destination process. That's it's not only petrol that you get when you subject crude oil into fractional distillation. You get petrol, you get diesel, you get gas, you get other products. What Nigerian government does is that they will forgo other products to the owner of those refineries in order to cover the cost of refining. They will now bring in the petrol products. The only other cost Nigeria incur is the cost of depot, because NNPC do not have its own depot. They depend on this independent marketer. They use their depot. So for storage, before they begin to distribute it, that is the other cost. And SNAGBO in that analysis said that by that standard, if the cost of the petrol in Nigeria is estimated, it shouldn't more than 65 naira. And that analysis, as we speak, has never been faulted by Nigerian government, has never been faulted by any governor, has never been faulted by NNPC. And yet they continue to fool Nigeria that subsidy
exists. Okay, you will continue with your line of thought. Let's pick this call. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dejimo, calling from Lekki.
Oh, great. Your contribution, please. How is it in Lekki?
Everything is hard. I just have a question to ask. Do we not have a reserve or something like this happen that can serve us for a 3 months or a 6 months thereabouts? That's the only question I have. Thank you much.
Thank you. You're welcome. He's talking about reserve. That shouldn't we have a reserve that can at least take us for 3 months before we are experiencing this untold hardship?
That's exactly what we are saying. That's exactly what we are saying. Because among all the countries that constitute OPEC, OPEC is the organizations of oil-producing country, in which Nigeria is one of them. Nigeria is the only country among these OPEC countries that imports petrol. Further ensure the refining of their petrol locally is done locally.
All right, another person wants to contribute. Hello, good evening. Your name and where you are calling from? Please move away from your television set so we can hear you. Please call back. It's also. Thank you. Yes.
So Nigeria is the only country that imports refined products. And if, like I said earlier, if we have been refining our products locally here, there will have been room for storage, for reserve, like the other person also desire. It was also my desire. But in a situation whereby, what we consume is being imported on a daily basis, it's going to make the question of reserve, very difficult. And that is why we always been saying that one of the way out of this is for Nigerian government.
So are you saying that we are not preparing for the rain indeed, that there is no reserve at all or storage to cushion this effect?
No, under this government and the system, capitalism they subscribe to, there will never be a rainy day. And that's the
truth. Are you
truth.
pessimistic?
I'm not pessimistic. I'm just saying the bitter truth.
But if you look at what the media aide, the presidential media aide, Femi Adesina, said yesterday, he said that this is not the first time that we will be having this in Nigeria. It has been happening even under other administrations apart from this one. And Nigerians will also survive this.
Yes, this is not the first time we'll be having it. But Nigerians never voted Buhari for the continuation of this ugly tradition. Because one of the bases they were voting is to end a situation whereby Nigeria will be experiencing what we are experiencing today. And that's ultimately means that our problem can never be resolved as long as we continue to have a government that subscribes to the system of capitalism, a system that prioritizes the profit interest of the few ahead the needs of the majority. And that's exactly what we are having this problem, because otherwise there shouldn't be any basis for a refinery to be crippled just to create markets and opportunity for few billionaire who are oil importer to be making super profit at the expense of Nigeria.
How is this affecting businesses? Because we have a situation where the price of commodities have risen in the last few weeks as a result of fuel scarcity.
Yes, that's at the small, medium businesses. Those ones, many will fold up, definitely. But when you're talking about capitalism, is a system that promote and survive on the basis of monopoly. The bigger the capital, the higher the prospect of surviving. And what that means is that the big business owner will be the one to reap from all of this crisis, while the small business owner ultimately are going to also suffer. But their own suffering ultimately, may not be as much as that of the working people, but they stand the risk of them also being, extincted. And what I mean by extinction is that many of them are going to be ruined, because by the time their businesses collapsed, when they don't have sufficient capital to compete with the big billionaires who have access to big capital, they are going to collapse. And the implication is that they themselves will be forced to join the class of the working class. And that's the danger. We're having with this situation now. Go anywhere, the cost of living has increased. Just yesterday, my son was telling me, that the cost of his transport has increased by 50 naira. I said, I know. And what that means is that
you have to pay more.
I have to pay more. So the cost of food in the market will also increase. So these are the problems that Nigerians are going to face, and this Nigeria never bargained for this. Additional may claim that this is not the first time Nigeria will be expressing this, but it was in a bid to end that and ensure a Nigeria where we never experienced that made Nigeria to vote for them in the first instance in 2015. But that this is happening again now clearly show that this government has never been different from the previous government, and they have demonstrated that they cannot resolve all of the problems Nigeria faced.
If you look at what the Nigeria Labour Congress is saying, they have decried the scarcity, saying that brought untold hardship to millions of commuters and drivers.
Yes, we welcome that they have realized that it has constituted a lot of hardship for Nigeria. But of course, it shouldn't just be a mere acknowledgement. The Nigerian Labour Congress must wake up to its responsibility. And what I mean by waking up to its responsibility is that it should declare, a 24 hours nationwide protest against fuel scarcity. Because
where is the place of dialogue? Because we are quick to protest in Nigeria. Shouldn't we have a dialogue before we say we are protesting?
They have dialogued at different occasions. As a matter of fact, there's a existing committee going on, but while that committee work is still ongoing, that is when this scarcity came in. And do you know that members of the Nigerian Labour Congress who are workers also stand the risk of being sacked in their various places of work. Because for instance now, if you get to bus stop and you did not get vehicle on time and you get to work late, you stand the risk of being queried. And if you continue to have repeated query, you stand the risk of being sacked. And for the interest of those category of workers to be adequately protected, there's a need for Nigerian Labour Congress to declare a day of mass protest to end this artificial scarcity, so that their member will not continue to be exposed, to the unnecessary.
Before I let you go, what are your expectations from the federal government going forward?
Well, I don't know what. For us in Socialist Party of Nigeria, we don't have any trust in this government because it's a pro-capitalist government. And a pro-capitalist government is not a government that can resolve all of the problems people are facing.
It's a government that people voted for and they put in position.
That is a discussion for another day, because when you're talking about the character of election that brought them to power, it's not an election that Nigerians are proud of. Aside the fact that they are being elected by a few minority of the Nigerian people. But the truth of the matter is,
you said so, Mr. Bangwe.
My own expectation should come from the people, not from the government. Because this government has demonstrated its incapacity to meet the needs of the people. So it's now left for the people to realize that and ensure that they midwife a government that will be able to meet their needs and aspirations. And that government must be a government formed by the workers and the poor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Abiodun Bangwe, for coming on Southwest today. We quite appreciate you for your contributions on the program today. Dear viewers, that's our show for this evening on Southwest today. Till next week when I come your way again,